Welcome to One More Hour, the podcast all about backyard ultras, timed races, and the ultra running mindset of going one more. If you're an ultra runner, a trail or ultra runner curious about the format, or just someone who loves to test your limits, you're in the right place. I'm Jackie Wilson, an ultra marathon and marathon run coach, trail runner, outdoor enthusiast, and backyard ultra expert. On this show, I'll bring you stories, strategies, and conversations with runners, race directors, experts, and more to help you go further, dig deeper, and keep going when everything in you says stop. Thank you so much for joining me for some yards. Let's get started with one more. Welcome back to the One More Hour podcast, your insider's guide to backyard ultras, timed events, and the mindset of going one more. Today's episode, I think, is a special one because we're really going to go behind the scenes of Minnesota's largest backyard ultra, which is Elm Creek Backyard Ultra in Maple Grove. It is a race that has become this proving grounds for runners who really want to find out what they're capable of. I am joined today by the race director, Nick Oswald. He has been involved in endurance sports for over 20 years, not just as an athlete, but as a volunteer, as a crew member, as an event organizer, a coach, and a fan. He's competed in marathons, triathlons, cycling, multi-day adventure racing, and strength competitions, with even creating his own series of endurance adventures. But his most recent chapter, and the one that we're really going to dive in today, has been organizing Elm Creek Backyard Ultra for the past handful of years, while also working towards his first Backyard Ultra himself. So today we're not just going to talk about what goes into running far in a Backyard Ultra. We're going to talk a little bit about what a race director sees at the race, what goes into organizing the race, and just kind of some different perspectives behind the race director position itself, but then also Elm Creek specifically as well. So if you've thought about running Elm Creek, which by the way, you need to sign up as soon as registration opens because it sells out fast, or if you're signed up to run it in just a couple of weeks, sit tight and let's get into it. Hi, Nick. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jackie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dive into Elm Creek and race directing and backyard ultras, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Nick Oswald. I'm based out of Stillwater, Minnesota. So I've lived here for about 4 years. I lived in Maple Grove before when I founded the Elm Creek Backyard. I've got 3 little boys that are 12, 10, and 7. And my wife, Irina, and I have been married for 15 years. So we met at the U of M. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I grew up near Green Bay. But yeah, I've been here for the last 20 years about and been doing adventures here with my wife and now with my kids and just exploring. So
awesome. So you grew up in Green Bay?
I grew up in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, so a little lake south of Green Bay. So it's not super tiny. There's like 30,000 people, but it's kind of an old shipbuilding town on Lake Michigan, about 30 minutes southeast from Green Bay.
Okay. So are you a Packers fan, a Vikings fan? Neither?
I am a Packers fan. So I'm the lone Packers fan. I haven't been able to bring my children along to Wisconsin sports teams, but I'm a Gopher. So I'm a huge Gopher fan from a college sports standpoint. But growing up a Packer fan and a Brewer fan, I've kind of drifted to the Timberwolves with my kids. But we have some good back and forth with Packers and Vikings within our house.
Yeah, I bet. So what is the story behind Elm Creek Backyard Ultra? How did you start it? Why did you start it?
You know, I think back in 2018, there's a documentary about Laz and Big's backyard that I think Amelia Boone was in, and there were some of the big named runners that did Big's for the first time, and they were, I think, going into the 30 hours, which seemed to be crazy at the time. But I'd seen the documentary, and I'd always been doing kind of my own adventures at the time. I was like, I really want to do one of these things. And I couldn't find one anywhere. Like Biggs was kind of a standalone thing. I know Andy Hulek had just started Duluth, I think in 2020, just before COVID. And I'd heard about that coming about, and I was trying to find some other ones. And there was nothing within the Midwest. So I had reached out to a friend of mine just with the idea. So I'd gotten involved with Jeanette, and she put on and organized the Maple Grove Triathlon. If those are familiar, and I helped her kind of organize that. And I reached out and said, hey, what would you think about getting back into event organizing and developing this concept? And I think we really love the idea of just kind of having this community event that, you could really bring people together in one spot. It seems like the perfect type of format to kind of bring family and friends and folks into, because you've got one base camp. So logistically,
Yes.
it seemed very easy when we were contemplating it. But we kind of dove into the conversations at the park in about 2019, and it took about 2 years to get everything pulled together. And we launched the first year in 2021, and we're going on to year 5 now.
That's awesome. So kind of going through that process of getting everything lined up for 2021, was it as easy as you expected? Was there some navigating different areas?
Well, I had a pre-existing relationship with the park because I work as National Ski Patrol, and I worked at Elm Creek Park Reserve within their ski patrol. So I knew a lot of the park directors there. And living in Maple Grove, I frequented Elm Creek both as a skier and as a runner throughout the year. So I knew the trails pretty well. And I had some conversations with the park director at the time. And the big hang up when we initially had conversations was Three Rivers didn't want to have an event that went overnight. Like they had a policy that they weren't going to allow anybody to do anything that would go over the park closure hours. So we kind of navigated that, but we went in and our approach when we were developing it was to have everything buttoned up. And Jeanette and I had organized events before, and we kind of knew what the city would be thinking about, what the parks would be thinking about, what safety concerns would be. And we had a highly detailed plan about every mitigation and really tried to get ahead of this overnight component. And we got them talking. We got in front of the Three Rivers board through the park director, and we were able to sell them an idea of letting us operate this event overnight, which was a huge hurdle, just kind of like logistically sorting out, because the park originally didn't really like the idea, but we worked through that with them, and we worked through the park, and we were able to bring it to life about 1.5 years after those conversations started. So
that is awesome. So what was that first year like for you, with just the race day experience in itself?
The race day experience, I think that first year was really magical, because I've been a part of a lot of events, and I think the classic experience at any event is like it builds to a winner, and you're waiting for like the first one to come in, and there's all this excitement. Where at the backyard, all the excitement's early. Like you have this massive camp, there's chaos, it's kind of like this giant family reunion or party in the park, and it's like the vibe is really, really high early, and then it tapers off, and it's interesting because the entire dynamic changes as the race goes on, because people leave, and it filters out, and the camp kind of slowly breaks down. And I think the first year we had just over 60 people, so it was also really small from like a community standpoint, that we got to go and talk to every camp, and we got to go and talk to every runner's family, and we got to kind of meet and get a little bit of their story. And a lot of those folks, I mean, we have out of the original 60, I think 22 of them have all come back every year. So,
that is awesome. Which
is really awesome, and they're kind of our torchbearers. But that first year also, you'd been to the event in more recent years. We literally had, I think, 3 12 by 12 like really cheap Walmart pop-ups and some picnic tables, and it downpoured the entire time. We had like the pavilion that exists today as the aid station. We actually set up like a kitchen there and a lot of our equipment, and we were running to and from what is essentially, when you leave, if you know the start, there's the Bluebird and the Chipmunk picnic pavilion. The first year was in Chipmunk, and we just went straight down the hill. We wanted like the visual of like people coming up the hill to finish. And we had the banner hung across the trees. It was super cool. Except we were running to and from power in that pavilion, and it's actually like 0.2 of a mile away. So I had volunteers running to and from all the time. We're like, we need this. And it's like, okay, you're shuttling, and there's not really that much time between loops. And we're hunkered down in these like 3 12 by 12 tents with our friends who also, I mean, in the early years, nobody knew what to bring. And we kind of gave some guidance to folks like, hey, you can bring a tent, because that's what we saw at other places that we're doing. So some people brought a tent. A lot of people brought nothing. And they were just like, we're going to sit at a picnic table, and it's downpouring, and we're trying to keep people warm. But the one thing that we invested in the first year that made all the world, we got this canvas big like outfitter tent that has a a wood stove in it. So we just started shuttling as many people as we could into this little canvas tent because they were wet and they were cold, but we had a heated space. It's actually turned into our medical tent. And it's worked out really great. But in the first year, just given the weather, given kind of our just trying to figure things out on the fly, the athletes really figuring things out on the fly because there weren't podcasts about backyard ultras back in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah.
And people didn't really know. And even the Netflix documentary, not many people had seen. And not many people really had known anything about Biggs at the time. And it was just a cool experience that we all kind of learned together. And like we leaned into it too with a lot of the runners to get feedback. We're like, hey, what went well? What didn't go well? What could we do better? And how do we kind of work through things and be prepared for inevitably really, really bad weather that comes through, it seems, in every April. So it was funny because when I was originally scouting the course, I had gone out because we had talked about it 2 years earlier. I went the weeks in April and we also looked at weeks in October, and I'd run those weeks. It was like the park was dry. It was beautiful weather. Like both the 2 years leading up, I'm like, we never had issues with like snow in the ski area or any flooding. And then that first year, it's like we not only had snow in the ski area, so we had to reroute the course, but we had downpours the entire week. And it was just, I don't know, you plan for it. And when it actually happens, you embrace it and just go.
Absolutely. So I ran it last year, and I was very impressed by how organized your entire crew was, and also how much information you provided the runners with, right? So a lot of races, you sign up on Ultra Sign Up, and that's kind of it. You may get a couple emails here and there, but everything is kind of just outlined in that initial Ultra Sign Up page. And I was highly impressed that we had a couple calls leading up to the race to go over the rules, to go over the course, to go over the athlete village, to have runners who had ran the race before kind of give their insight into the race too. So when did you start that, and how did you come up with that idea?
We started the first year when we originally came up with the event concept. And even backing up when Jeanette and I first started working together on some of these events, we always wanted to create events that were very athlete forward. And when I say athlete forward, I mean for the person coming for the first time. Try to put myself into their lens, because I had been a first timer at many events. And I remember the first time I went to like a triathlon, I'm like, I don't know where to put my bike. I don't know what the procedure is. And they don't tell you. And you kind of figure it out from other people. And the communities in different places are really great that they help you, but in this format especially, and even in like I've done stage races, and you get kind of a little bit of your own adventure, you get communication, but even then you're somewhat on your own. Like I wanted to leave no questions. Like I wanted to kind of put myself in, if I'm attending this, here are all the questions I have. And like it started as just Jeanette and I, but we had the fortune of Eric and Bryn Bohr, who he worked for Duluth Running, and he's a coach, and he now has another job as like working in athletics. But like Eric's also a runner, and he just brought great perspective. And Bryn's a runner, and like they organize different fat ass events out west. And I think between the four of us, we just started kind of poking and being like, hey, what does a runner need to know? And then we started saying, what does a crew need to know? What do their friends and family need to know? What do random people in the park, what can we give them to let them know what's going on? And we just tried to step through these scenarios. And like, it doesn't take long to create these assets. And once you create them, it's just get them out to people, let people respond to them. And then we've iterated on them every year based on things that we've learned and things that we've gotten back and requests from the park at times. So, but even then, like we largely just want it to be super accessible. And we want everybody to like come in, know what to expect, know what's available, and be able to just come and enjoy themselves and kind of push themselves and not have to worry about anything else.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Reducing as many questions as possible beforehand so that you can just kind of focus on enjoying the experience and going as far as you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for someone who has never experienced Elm Creek, because I think every race has a different feel, every course is different. So how would you describe the feeling of race day for Elm Creek Backyard Ultra?
I mean, Elm Creek, I think it's bigger than many backyards, which we didn't really know when we set out. And the first year was 60 people. It's a very different vibe than it is today. But even today, like we try to be like we try to make sure people are really clear. We try to be really organized with the execution of getting the village set up. We try to give enough time for folks to get in and get comfortable, because I know some places you're somewhat tight in terms of your turnaround to set up and actually get race started. So we try to create enough windows and flexibility there to make people be comfortable. So like we're always trying to make it feel like a family picnic. Like we're very purposefully at Elm Creek, like we don't have sponsor banners and we don't have like a vendor village and that type of thing on purpose. Like we want it just to be like a family picnic. We want everybody to be there to be in a community. We want fires going that you can go and commune and talk. We want people to bring yard games. We want people to set up grills, and we want people sharing stories. So we try to do what we can to foster that vibe as much as possible, and try to have music going in the park and let people send in music requests and let kids ring the bell and come and do karaoke. And I mean, there's all sorts of random things where we just try to lean into, make it about the athletes, do everything we can to get their families involved as well. Like Jeanette and Bryn and Eric are great. Like I'm running around oftentimes throughout the event in different places, but like the three of them they go and purposely are talking to every like family member, and they're trying to get to know families, and they're trying to get to know the people that are out there and just see how things are going. And we adapt to things on the fly too. So I think for us, we want the vibe to be, we always say it's like family picnic. Come on out, meet new friends, meet people you haven't seen in a long time, set up camp, just come relax and watch people push themselves. And we get a lot of people now that have come, they've run on day one, and then they come back on day two, and they watch those folks that are going over 100 miles, which is really cool. And I mean, we had a whole bunch of people that start kind of pinging us online that are like, hey, we're like last year with Adam and Nick, like, are they still going? Are they going? Can we come back out? I'm like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here.
Yeah.
I started running with Nick and Adam for a little bit because I'm like, what are these? But yeah.
Yeah, to just give you my opinion, I think you've absolutely nailed that family picnic feeling. And I think just the entire grassy open area with the picnic shelter also plays into that. Gosh, I like thinking back, I think that description is absolutely perfect.
I mean, I think there are some, like John Starkamp and Rocksteady do a phenomenal job. And like, I look to him and a lot of what they do and just creating immense amount of community. And he's done a spectacular job doing that. And I just hope we can scratch the surface at building community like they have. And there's other folks that I've learned from. I don't know, like we do little things like we send a letter to folks before the race. And it's super fun, but that's not my idea. I got it from a guy named Chris Scogan, who, if you're familiar with the Almanzo and the early gravel cycling scene, like gravel cycling when it first started was like this underground thing where guys essentially wrote directions on a cue card and they handed them out when you showed up. And Chris, he like, I remember meeting him for the first time, it was in the early 2000s, but he wrote letters. Like the first year I wrote letters, but it became too much because I've got terrible penmanship and I don't like asking my wife to write 200 letters. So I've typed them and I try to sign them. But Chris, he would handwrite these things, and he was so good about like reaching out and like making it all about like the people, and like he went above and beyond. And I always like take little bits from him as well. And you see snippets of those things that kind of just make it about the people that I think are special and help people feel a little bit of connection that we just try to do a little bit. It takes a little bit of effort, but it's totally worth it to kind of see and hear from people and get them coming back and enjoying themselves while they're gone.
Yeah, it goes so far. I mean, I got my letter and my map with the rules. I got that in the mail and I was blown away by it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so simple, right? But it's so cool, and it's not something that a lot of race directors do. So I think it's just kind of touching on something unique that not a lot of runners experience.
Yeah, we try to, I don't know, do little things, and I try to take the athlete perspective. And even we talk to families too, like what do they need to know or what do they want to see? How can they get involved? And we try to continue to find different ways to make it, because we know for everybody, it's not just about the runner too. Like there are people, there are wives there are spouses there are husbands there are kids there are moms and dads there. You know, often the moms and dads are the most fun to talk to because they don't even know why the person's running. They don't know like what they're going through, and then they're also like really worried about them, but at the same time they're really excited, and it's fun to kind of bring them along, and they get to be a part of the journey. Unlike like 100-mile races, you see people once every couple hours, and you're having to travel, and the logistics for like a parent or a grandparent to go do that is really limited. But here, they can pop in during the day and they can hang out for a couple hours and then they can leave and they can come back. And you have kids coming and going. And it's super cool because you kind of keep coming back to the same spot. And
yeah. So let's touch on the course. The race is located, we've been talking about Elm Creek Preserve in Maple Grove, Minnesota. What is the course itself like in terms of terrain, elevation, and all of that?
Yeah, we're fortunate. Like Three Rivers does a phenomenal job maintaining parks and trails for the community. And we have the fortune of using, it's called the Lake Trail within Three Rivers Parks. It shares part of a combination of trails in the system. So there's Northern Lights, which is the common cross-country ski trail that goes through the actual ski area, which is sometimes covered in snow. I checked it out 2 days ago, and there's still snow, but it's about the same it was in previous years, so we should be okay. There's always a way to pass through, but you've got the Northern Lights Trail. The nice thing about that is it's a section of trail that's lit, typically as well, because it's lit for the cross-country season. And then you hop onto the backside after you cross the bridge, and you go into just the Lake Trail, which goes around. There's another trail that is the Eagle Trail that kind of spurs off. But they're all these really wide, really well-maintained turf trails that have really clean footing. You've got plenty of space for a lot of runners to run together, which is one of the really cool things. So I know some of the events that I've been to, like on single track, you can't run next to somebody in a single track because you're footing, you're focused on trees. Like, it's a cool experience, but you try to talk to somebody, like the person in front is talking and you're like, I can't hear you.
Yep.
So, but Elm Creek, like, we've got the fortune of you can run side by side. You can run 4 people wide through pretty much the entire duration of the trail. I think in rain, there's certain sections that can get really muddy, but it's overall, it's a really spread out turf trail that you can run in any kind of shoes pretty much. If it's like wet, generally people are wearing spikes, but you're going to be comfortable running. You can get away with road shoes if you really want to, if it's dry especially. But I don't know, there's very few parts of it that are not trail. There's a couple short bike sections in the section of the parking lot as you get onto the trail. There's a couple of sections of gravel, but 80% of it is all on grass, which is, I think, amazing for this kind of event.
Yeah, absolutely. So when runners are kind of thinking about this course, is there anything that's unique or that you think that they should think of before running Elm Creek, either this year or in coming years?
It's not the flattest course. I know there are courses that are significantly flatter, but I'd say, like, for me as a runner, I really like it because there's variation. And I think one of the hardest things in a flat course, like, you can just like get bored sometimes when it's just, there's no variation. I think the ski hill can be a little annoying to people because you are running through a ski hill. But again, skiing at Elm Creek, you have 88 vertical feet, so it's not really that bad. I mean, and then there's a couple of few short, steep pitches, but overall, it's kind of this rolly, beautiful course through the woods. And there's a little bit of variation because you're running kind of through the marsh area, and then you're running kind of in the backside area that's just in the woods, and you've got another area that comes to the ski area. So there's a bit of variation. I don't know. I think it's a great course. And I know some people have asked us about doing the classic like day loop, night loop, like a night loop on pavement, which we actually have a pavement course there that we could run. But with how wide the trail is and how good the footing is, we've never seen the need. Yeah. And we've never, like, there was a section of trail that we took out last year that was called the Swamp Trail. That was always a little bit hairy in the dark because it tucks down really close to the marsh, and depending on the melt, it can create a bunch of like holes that we'd go mark. Like, we'd have a bunch of little flags and we'd put cones down, and it just was a safety issue that we didn't need to have. So we kind of just created that little bypass that's on the pavement a little bit high when you exit kind of the prairie section of the course on the north side. But overall, like, it's wide enough, it's spacious enough, the footing's good enough that we can just have one loop, which I think is great. And then it gives us that ability to kind of rotate it every 6 hours to get a little bit of variety. We've also...
Yeah, and I think... Go ahead.
No, like, course-wise, I think folks that have been around since the beginning, we've actually had to run 4 different courses over the course of the year.
Oh, wow.
Because in the first year... So last year we ran the course that it's designed. But the first year we had to do a bypass because of some water issues. The second year the entire original course is flooded through the ski area. There's a river running where you come down the ski hill. So we actually had 3 courses marked the week of the race, and we had to mark a different course. So my praise goes out to Mark Smith if he watches this, because Mark Smith and Mike Whalen and Brian Korgard and some other folks went out and helped create a course basically right before the last loop. Like, I'd been out there with Eric, the other race director, and we had marked one, and then we had to remark it, but we were trying to get the distance right because the park, with all the rain that we had in year 2, they originally told me the day of the race we needed to cancel. And I said, there's no way. Like, there is plenty of trail here. Like, we had a course on pavement that we were going to make it work. And like I've always told folks, it's like, we will run no matter what. Like, I've got enough alternatives, but we've run a fair variety of courses over the 5 years. But now we've got plenty of options. So it comes to, we've always got these reroutes, and we've got enough credibility now at the park that they know we will do right by them as well. And like, even running 200 people through, we have options to work with. So, but some of the alternate courses run through other parts of the park that are kind of fun, but it's trying to get them all. I like the loop around Mud Lake because it's one loop, as opposed to doing like lollipops or out and back sections or things where you run the same section in and out. Like, I prefer not to do that if I can.
I think one of the things that runners don't think a lot about is what we've been talking about with weather and different things that come up that require a course change, which there's a lot that goes into it, right? So is there anything else from the race directing side that requires a lot of adaptation besides figuring out what the course is actually going to be?
I mean, it's working really closely with essentially your permitting bodies and your insurance, because a lot of what you can do as a race director is predicated on, like, for us, it's 3 rivers, and then the police department tied to 3 rivers will allow us to do. And then our insurance coverage for certain things. So like, the expansion of other events requires different insurance. Or if you talk about things, there's just complications as you start to expand the scope, like more participants, you get into different insurance requirements. But a lot of it has to do just with what the park is going to say, and they can come in the day of and be like, yeah, sorry, you can't do it for X, Y, and Z reason. I mean, they own your permit, so we're subject to them. I think the way we've always approached it with them is, we will give you plan A, B, C, D, E. You tell me, like, and if you'll work with me, I will make up a plan F on the fly. So like, we do whatever we can, and it's a little bit easier for us because it's like one governing body that we're dealing with. I know many other events, like 100-mile events and like these 200-mile events, I can't even contemplate what they have to deal with when it comes to course, because you're dealing with so many different agencies that you have to navigate. Like, that alone would be a headache. And like, you hear stories of races being canceled for different reasons, and I can totally understand it, just having to deal with one group, because there's elements. The funny thing about Elm Creek that we are always up against is the disc golf lobby. So there's a disc golf course that runs through ours. So we have to work with that side of the park, because it's a money-making side of the park. And we paid for a permit, and we're using the turf trails, but there's also paying customers coming in to use the disc golf course that we run through. And we've been able to navigate that just fine. In addition, there's things like weddings that go on that we have to be cognizant of. They have a wedding. They collect a fair amount of money to host weddings at the event. So we run right by their wedding venue. We've never had an issue, and we've never had a runner jump into a wedding. But that's part of why we do it in the picnic area and not over by, and some people have asked, why don't you do it at the chalet? It seems like a great place. I'm like, it'd be cool, but they use the chalet for a lot of different things, and the picnic area is amazing.
What's your vision for the race? Do you like keeping it around that 200 runner number, or do you see it getting bigger? Like, what do you see Elm Creek being in 5 years?
I think we'll probably keep it about where we're at. I think we feel really good operationally about the 200 number. We could do more. Like, the park would allow us to do more. I think it's more, parking becomes a little bit of a challenge. Like, the village, we have some space to work with, but we like not having to like explicitly slot people into specific spots, which I know some places do because of the nature of their picnic area. Like, we have enough flex that people can kind of create their own little rooms. I know we create aisles to try to organize it, but we don't go, here's your 10 by 10 spot, and you cannot leave this 10 by 10 spot. So we've got the space. We talk about it every year, and we go back and forth because I think we like the idea, but at the same time, we like that we can get around, and 200 is still enough that we can go talk to most people that want to talk to us. So not everybody wants to talk to us, but I think for the most part, like, we can go around the village, and when we have time, we can kind of interact with folks, and we can keep people connected, and we can keep tabs on, like, people that are kind of in and out for different reasons. And it seems to be a good number for us right now that will probably stay there, at least for the time being.
Yeah. What do you think is beneficial for runners to teach their crew about the race and about helping them?
I think the biggest thing is probably just preparing your crew, because if you're bringing a crew, for one, like, you kind of create this situation where you're depending on them to get certain things ready for you, but kind of walking them through kind of the sequence. I know, like, in my own preparations, like, I created like 6-hour chunks where I'm like, hey, there's 6-hour chunks of interchangeable things that you could do, but in this 6 hours, I effectively need to check all of these boxes. So, because my wife would be my crew for when I one day do a backyard. But I think the most important thing is you just kind of work your way through. I like doing chunks of time, because sometimes you might, like, if you try to explicitly say, on this hour I'm going to do X, and on hour 2 I'm going to do Y, inevitably, in every event I've ever done, like, I come in and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I have no interest in having a peanut butter and banana bagel right now. Give me something salty. Like, okay, well, as long as you prepare that you've got kind of alternatives that you can meet kind of what you generally need, but also not giving yourself too many options, because I think many times if you give yourself too many options, that's often like where nutrition failures happen. It's like, I'm just going to eat everything I want. Like, there's a certain element of, eat everything you want, but you also can destroy your gut pretty quickly, especially in long events. And that's more often than not what gets people in things like this, is either eating too much or not enough. And I just think as you prepare for race day, like, the most common thing I see is, like, folks not necessarily having a plan for food, or at least having some contingencies, or have like a framework that they're working with. Like, and we somewhat perpetuate the problem, because we provide a lot of options in our little aid station. I like the idea, because when you do like 200-mile races and multi-day stuff, it's like you just want anything, and you're kind of perpetually at this deficit, which the backyard, like, we want to be able to provide stuff for folks, but it's, hey, we'll let you know what's going to be there. Think about it kind of from your own strategy of what works for you and what you need to get to. So you can do as much as you may want to do, and not let your stomach be your stopping point.
Yeah. I don't remember, so refresh my memory. Do you provide a list of food that you have at the aid station ahead of time?
We provide kind of a list of the types of food. We don't have the exact things, but generally it's like, so we have a rotation of hot food that we do starting at nighttime for folks. And part of it is what's available for us when we go get stuff the day before the race. But we generally say, it's like, we'll always have a quesadilla type thing that'll be for vegans and non-vegans. We'll always have a mashed potato that's going to be vegan friendly. We're always going to have a beef broth and a veggie broth that's available. And then we'll have an assortment of like candies and sweets. We'll have an assortment of salty snacks. I could say, we're going to have Lay's potato chips, but I don't know. We might have the Old Dutch potato chips. But generally, we kind of lay out, it's like, hey, we've got salty snacks, we've got sweet snacks. We're going to have kind of a rotation of kind of these vegan, non-vegan options. That will always include a broth, a potato, and then kind of a general wrap product. And then there's usually some surprises that we pull in. But we always have like pickles and pickle juice. We'll always have Coke and Sprite and ginger ale. We'll always have coffee and hot water, so folks can do their own thing. And then we kind of work through, we've pared it back a little bit. Like in the first year, we had like a full service breakfast menu, which was fun, but it was also like I was cooking, I was trying to get volunteers, and like some people weren't comfortable in the grill. I'm like, go make scrambled eggs. We're gonna do breakfast burritos. I'm like, no, let's simplify that. Like we can make fun and I think the other thing too, we're trying to be much more cognizant about like food waste and like making sure we're composting, getting stuff out and using compostable things. And that first year especially, we were really cognizant that we waste a lot of food because we also, from like a food service standpoint, you can't let stuff sit out for long, like especially in a camp kitchen. So we're making stuff. It's like, oh, we made 4 dozen scrambled eggs for people. It's like, oh, they ate about 4 eggs total. I'm like, okay, well, volunteers, who wants eggs? So we've tried to be a bit more, pare it back a little bit, still have kind of the staples that folks could get by if they only wanted to use our aid station, but at the same time simplify it a little bit to make it easier for volunteers to execute, and also a little bit easier for crew to kind of come. Because we tell crew, it's like, hey, if you want to get something, give us enough time. Like, don't expect us to be able to turn around in the 10-minute window you have between loops. But if you know they want it next, sorry, something just fell in my room. If you know what you want next, we can get it made, and we can have it waiting for you when they come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought your aid station was really well organized, and I mean, you had a wide variety of things, and I think that's, you know, some backyard ultras don't have an aid station. It's you provide everything for yourself. Some it's more minimal. I think you guys are, I would say, at the top of the line there, which I think is great. And I think it gives runners an opportunity, for those who are kind of towing the line for ultras and for trail races, to really experience like what is a 100-mile race like, and what are some of the things that they do have at aid stations, which gives them kind of an idea for the future of what to think about and kind of what to think about in their training too. So I think everything there was absolutely excellent.
Thank you. I mean, Bryn does a phenomenal job organizing our aid station. So we all talk about it, but when it comes to executing it, that's 100% Bryn, just kind of bringing it together. And Jeanette, I know, helping on the side, and the team of volunteers that we get out there to do a really great job getting it all set up.
Yeah, so let's talk about volunteers, because, you know, a backyard could have very minimal volunteers because of the nature of the race, right? But you guys, from what I've seen, have a lot of volunteers. So what are your volunteer needs, and what are some of your volunteers actually doing on race day?
Yeah, I think it's interesting for folks that come to volunteer, because you're right, there's not actually a lot that they need to do. A lot of it is kind of the pre and post. So, and we have a lot of folks that have come back every year to help us out, and they kind of have learned the drill about how we set up our camp village and how we get things going there. And in the aid station, you end up having a lot of downtime. So I think it's somewhat, I think, a challenge for some people that want to volunteer, because they want to be doing something all the time. And I think we tell them, it's like, hey, like, go talk to folks, go hang out, just go kind of hang out with the community. It's like the times in a backyard where we really need the volunteers. It's like, okay, when they're coming in about 15 minutes before, met us for 5 to 10 minutes after, to kind of, one, make sure our waters are up to date, make sure the electrolyte that we have is good to go, make sure we have hot water ready to go. Oftentimes they're sending volunteers into kind of the race village to remind crew of certain things, like, hey, you need a headlamp on the next lap, or hey, we're going to have hot water going. And we try to let the crews, more than anything, know what's happening. And we kind of rotate through. There's some signage that we update throughout the race, but we do have a lot of people that are really generous with their time, and many times we send them just on the course, like, go enjoy the course, sweep for us, let us know, like, help make sure people are doing okay, which is also, you'd think on a 4-mile loop, like, folks would be just fine, which they generally are, but we've had situations where volunteers that are sweeping have brought somebody in and found somebody that was just too cold, because sometimes, especially for folks going overnight for the first time, which I think the backyard is a really great way to do that. If it's something you've never done, you often run into experiences where folks maybe go out overnight, they don't move as quickly as they thought they were going to move, and then they get cold really fast. And that, I think, the most common situation we see, where you've got like runners that are new to going out at night, where the temp from daytime changes a lot. And especially in those years where it's wet, like you're wet during the day, temp drops 20 degrees, you went out with maybe just one layer and you probably needed 2. You're walking instead of running more of the loop, and all of a sudden you just start getting really cold. So we've got sweepers that go out, which is a really cool way to people can go get some miles. And we often just send the sweepers and just say, hey, run, let us know how long you're going to be out there. And you kind of create windows. They're not necessarily following the course. We're just having them run the course multiple times to look for folks, which is a cool way for people to get involved too. We have folks that do, like, the timing is always interesting because I think it's a learning experience for all of us. Like, we added chip timing the second year, but there's some manual activity in terms of, especially like hour 6 to hour 12 is where the bulk of folks end up dropping out. So you're trying to make sure you note them, because inevitably you get a phone call or you get text messages or Instagram posts about, my runner, they haven't seen their number updated. Are they or they're still in the course, or they're at home? And I'm like, the timing is where we get the most engagement from folks outside of the event, having somebody and folks that can get familiar. And we've been fortunate to have a lot of the same people come back to help us with it, because every year I get the timing equipment, we rent it from Race Result. I have to relearn it because this is the only event we're doing right now. So I don't know it well enough, but we figure it out. We get it up and going. But yeah, I don't know. The volunteers, we always tell folks, it's like, come on out, let us know when you can be there. We will find some things for you to help with. But a lot of times it's like the aid station stuff is these limited windows of fits and starts around each loop. And then you've got some downtime, which is fun.
I think you have a unique experience and perspective because you're at the race, right? You're in the middle of it all, but your experience is different from runners and different from crew too. So what are you seeing on race day?
I see everybody just pushing themselves, whether it's, I remember we've got years where the first loop, it's somebody trying to do 4 miles in an hour for the first time in their life. Every year we have somebody doing that, which is super cool. And it's a really rewarding experience. And I think the backyard's really great for that too, because I think all the other runners recognize when you've got these folks that are pushing themselves to their most at even like short or long disciplines, and everybody's super supportive of like really encouraging them, helping them along. And I remember like my brother-in-law came out to do it last year and he really wanted to run the loop. I'm like, okay. And I went to check on him halfway because he hadn't run much. And he was like, he was amped up and running at like 2 miles when I saw him at the halfway point, and I got him. And it was just like fighting to get to the finish line. I'm like, it's so exciting. It's super, super cool to see you get out and get to this place and kind of accomplish a goal and get there. So I think he's going to come back and try to do 2 this year. When I get my son talking, he's like, I think I could do 4. And he's 12. I'm like, maybe, we'll see. But he might go out as a sweeper and we'll kind of have an independent kind of run. But I think as a race director, like you get to kind of see it through both the racers and the crew's eyes, because as the race goes on, you've got crew that are waiting there, like up to the wire. They're at like minute 56 and like they're coming. They told us they'd be here at 54. I'm like, yeah, they're fine. Like as it gets dark, you can see lights coming to. I'm like, it's got to be them. They'll be okay. And it's like seeing them kind of live this experience with their runner as well is just, it's super cool because they're in it just as much as the runners. And the runners like make that corner and they still have that 0.2 of a mile to go, and they can see the clock and they're just trying to get there. And then every year we inevitably have somebody who's like, I was just talking and I lost track of time. And they're like, you got, like last year I had a group of like 2 runners that came and it's like, we just didn't know what time it was. It happens. I mean, it's fun because you get these. Yeah. It's the one format where people go out and they build community and they build bonds, and like the runners are kind of coalescing around people of similar pace or similar strategy. The crews start to kind of coalesce in a similar way where they get together and they're talking and they're playing cards and they're sitting around the bonfire. And you've got all of these people that are just kind of working together to see their runners do great things and their crews kind of learning. And I don't know, it's the accessibility of the format just brings a lot of people together in different ways. So whether it's the runners and the crew, or like early on I said like the family members that may not get to go to see these types of things in other places, right. They're just kind of awed by what's happening and the people coming in and the different groups and how they're just going back out. And I don't know, it's really cool to see the different ways that people come together throughout the event and support each other. Like as the race goes on, you see other crews that their runner is finished supporting runners that maybe are uncrewed. Like I think you saw we have that entire kind of nomad village of uncrewed runners. And as the race
Yeah.
goes on, they inevitably get crews because folks want to stay, they want to help out, they want to contribute, and they're running water, they're helping them change their socks, and like you get, I just met you and you're touching my feet, and okay, but so it's just, I don't know, it's really fun because you get people like Nick last year came without a crew, but as it went on, like more and more people were trying to help pull for him and be like, sorry, something just weird happened on my computer. Yeah, so you've got more and more people that are coming together to talk about or to help each other out and really just help the runners
Right.
keep going. And I think the coolest, like there are many folks that are trying to get to given goals, whether it's a marathon, 50 miles, 100K, 100 miles, and you always have runners that are like, I can't go anymore, I'm done. And they sit in the chair and they're like, they're not going out, but you see the crew, they turn them around, they get them going, and they find a way.
One of my favorite things to see at the backyard is when one runner says that they're done and they immediately go start helping another runner. Or they're like, I have extra water, I have extra ice, who needs it? I just love that, I don't know, that atmosphere of the backyard.
Yeah, no, it's inevitably like everybody starts sharing resources and they all want to see every runner go as far as they can.
Yeah.
It's just super cool that way.
So you mentioned between like hour 6 and hour 12, you see a lot of runners dropping. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, because you see hour 6 is about a 50K, and then hour 12 is the 50 mile. So you've got like kind of that marathon 50K, 50 mile mark that ends up being, I think, the most common milestones that people are looking for. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes folks, we start at noon. A lot of people are like, I want to get to the dark. I want to get to midnight. That is generally where we see kind of the biggest cutoff. And then you see another chunk that drops at 100K. And then usually if they get to 100K, that group is kind of really becoming that group that's trying to hit 100 miles if they're pushing past there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's always interesting because I think inevitably people go further than they plan to in the backyard format, just given like you're with people that are encouraging. It's like, hey, you coming back out? We're going for another one. We're going to see it. And you end up having a lot of people go further than they thought. I remember it took our first year, we didn't have a 100-mile runner. And then our next year, I think we had 2. And then the year after, I think we had 10. And it's grown. Wow. I think last year we had 17. So every year, more and more folks are getting there. But there's like more and more people on the edge. I know there's a runner, Kent, who I think he got to 92. And he was fighting from like 70. But he's like, I'm going to get there. And he's coming back. I'm really excited to watch him run again because like he got there, he came and apologized after the race, said he didn't get there. I'm like, no, you did amazing. No. Like you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be awesome. And there's a whole slew of runners that I just can't wait to see how they can go. I know Katka Svensson, like she's coming back. Yeah. She ran 100 miles last year. She has a chance to make the Czech national team. So like she's pushing. I know she's got some goals out there, but it's going to be really exciting to cheer her on and watch her go. And I know she's got some crew coming, but I think she's one of the people that's been there every year. So we know Katka pretty well, and it'll be really cool to see if she can get to her goal and make maybe the national team for Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, that would be. So do you know what she needs to qualify?
I think technically she needs to get to 27. I think she wants to get in the 30s. Okay. So I believe like the bottom of the list is 27. I think she did 25 last year. But I know we're going to get her into the 30s. That's the goal. So.
Yeah. Gosh, that'll be fun. I ran with her last October during a backyard, and it was fun just to chat with her a little bit. And her crew was so much fun too. So
she's great.
It'll be fun to see her.
It's really great to see all those folks. So
yeah. When it comes to night running, what advice do you have for runners who have never ran through the night?
One, know it's going to be difficult between 3 and 4 a.m. And you just have to kind of there's different things you can do, but 3 to 4 a.m. for everybody is hard. Like your brain, like naturally you want it shut down. Like you can kind of use energy to get past midnight, to get to 1 or 2. Just like it's the lowest temps in the day, so it's cooled off quite a bit. Your brain wants to go to sleep. Like find a way to kind of, whether you're talking to somebody else. I mean, for me, sometimes I just count. I just start counting steps to give my mind something to do. Or I try to mix up my pace more in the middle of the night. I think it's just generally knowing when you go to those like pre-dawn hours, that is the hardest part of the night for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
And whether it's the first night, the second night, or like a night later, it's going to be challenging. And just try to give yourself some different options just to kind of get your brain going in a different way and focused on really what's going well. I know when I career folks, I always tell folks, there is something going well, focus on that. Whether it's what you're eating, your stomach's okay, your legs are still moving. Okay, that's going well. Don't focus on the things that aren't going well or what doesn't feel good. You've got something to grasp onto, that other thing can come around. So I think I try to tell myself the same thing, which I don't always do a great job of, but it's nighttime can be tricky. I think there's some things that you can do strategically to help yourself. Because for me, having done like multi-day things, one of the things I learned from this guy in a 200-mile race and former Army, I think he was a special operator, but he always talked about leveraging green light instead of white fluorescent light as much as possible to help the strain on your eyes, especially if you're walking, because you can see just fine. But it's like part of operating for many, many hours is like just eye fatigue from like just staring at fluorescent light. So I started using just I have a headlamp that is green. I use it in camp all the time, and it's really easy for my wife to see me during night events because I'm the only person running on the green light. But for me, like eye fatigue is one of those things where it's like, man, your eyes hurt, you want to close them because you've just been staring so long at that little white light. I know waist lamps often do help with that, just to kind of redirect light differently. But for me, one simple thing you can do is just like, if you're walking, use a different light or turn it off. Because if there's enough moonlight, just give your eyes a little bit of a break, because that does definitely kind of can create headaches and make you a little bit uncomfortable just staring at it for 8 to 10, 12 straight hours. I think the other thing at night too is make sure you're eating. Like that's when oftentimes you're like, my body doesn't want to be eating. I want to shut this down. But that's usually, like in my experience, where like people like, I don't feel I need to. It's cooler. I'm just going to drink a little less. I'm going to eat a little less. I think that's where kind of having a plan, and if you have a crew or if you don't have a crew, like write yourself notes. If I'm crewed somewhere, I write myself a note. I'm like, this is my plan. Here are my options, to give my brain less to think about. Just be like, okay, I thought about this already. I don't need to think about it now. Just do what's on my cue card. So it can definitely help to kind of take decision making out in that time frame too. Just focus on doing kind of what you've thought about previously.
And you made that decision when you were thinking logically and when you weren't fatigued. Yeah. So listen to that rational brain versus your tired brain right now.
Definitely.
When it comes to runners deciding that they're done, do you think that it's more physical or mental or lack of strategy or not knowing what they're actually capable of that really kind of determines that they're done?
I think in a backyard, the most common reason is mental. And I think usually it's because people have picked, like the most common thing is they've picked a distance that they want to get to, and then they instantly shut down after that. Because most racing is you have a fixed place you're trying to go to. So I think for backyards, the hardest thing is like, well, how long am I going to go? And I think most people will go in and be like, okay, I've got like an A goal, a B goal, and a C goal. And it's like, here's what I want to do at minimum. And I think having a mindset that's unbounded is really hard. Like even when like I hear a lot of folks that talk about it's like, I don't have a goal, I'm just going to go until I fail. I'm like, in the back of my mind, I say the same thing. Like when I think about doing a back end, I'm just going to go as long as I can. But I also have these like mental check marks about like, okay, I need this point. Like I need to get to 24 hours. It's like from 24 hours, then I think about, it's like, okay, what's the longest amount of time I've been awake? The longest amount of time. I'm like, okay, that's a check mark. And I think for anybody, you hit those check marks of kind of your own experience or kind of what you've worked through in your mind. And it becomes a little bit of a a relaxation in the focus of what you may be trying to do in a backyard if you're trying to just go as long as you can. And it gives your brain this little bit of an out to be like, I hit this. I hit the gate. I can just stop. And it's really hard. Like when you hit those given places in a timed event or a backyard event or in any kind of journey that you're doing, you're like, yep, I have this escape hatch. My brain says, I need to live. Let's use that escape hatch and not continue to be in this state of like flight. So, it's, I think, mostly mental, and I don't know the answers. I've seen people succeed more. Like, I think many people could have gone a lot further than they did, but I've also seen the flip, too, where people have hit their absolute limit.
Yeah.
That's also scary. I think it's scary when people do cross that line. I mean, I see the lead up to some of these big events coming up, people being like, I'm willing to die to finish as far as I'm like, that's a little extreme. I'm like, I get it. Like, if you can turn your brain off in such a way to go that far, I understand the concept, but I'm like, man, even like as a race director, seeing people on that edge, like we've candidly had to pull people. Like we tell folks in the lead up, it's like, given our experience and our discretion from like a medical standpoint, we have a responsibility to the runners to make sure they are not doing themselves undue, like doing harm. And we consult with the medical staff that we have there. And we try to make sure people are allowed to push themselves as far as possible, but also not cross into a place that you need some kind of medical intervention. Because there are some people that can shut their brain off and do that and go further. And backyard, for better or worse, is an easy avenue to allow people that can turn their brain off to do that. So
yeah, that's a really good point. Do you have any experience with being right at the start and the finish line of turning someone around? Like let's say they said from the very start their goal was to run for 8 hours, and they crossed that, they finished their 8th yard, and they said, I'm done, I met my goal. Do you have any experience of convincing those people to go out for another yard?
I think the early hours, not as much, but some folks that have been closer to like 100 miles, we've been able to really be like, hey, you are only, like, you made it through the night. Like, I'm able to reason with folks on, I'd say, some of the bigger goals. I think a lot of times when you've got folks that have come in to say, I'm running 6 hours, like they've kind of set and it becomes a little bit predetermined. I think we always try to talk to them, like, hey, why not one more? Like, I think it's easier for other runners to convince them than it is necessarily like me as the race director or like anybody in the staff. I think when we cross past 100K, I can create more compelling messages to folks. And even for the folks that have gone over 100 miles, like I've turned them around. I'm like, you're going to keep going. Like sometimes it's like Aaron last year, he wanted to be done. Like he had won the race the year before and he desperately wanted to be done. But I'm like, Aaron, you are 4 hours away. And his wife was on board. You're 4 hours away from setting a new best. Let's get there. Like, what do you need? What's going well? How do we turn you around? Get out of the chair. Every time he came, he's like, I'm not going again. Like, where are you going back out? So his wife would get him up. We'd get him, like his stuff was like, nope, just, you're gone. We'll see you. You'll be fine. You'll be okay. You're just fine. Yes, this is miserable, but you're almost at 30 hours. We're going to get you there. And like we find, I think, different folks in different states that we can do that with. It's fun. It's a fun challenge. You can't turn everybody around. And I think the hard part about a backyard is you have limited time to do so. I think in longer format events, like in 100 miles, you have enough window where you can be like, hey, I know you want to quit. Let's just go sit down for 10 minutes. Let's sit down for a half an hour. Let's have something to eat. Let's warm up a little bit. Let's take our shoes and socks off. Let's just decompress for 10 minutes. Let's get this flushed from our mind so we can recalibrate. So, I mean, in longer events like 100s, 200s, or some of these other ones, I can give a person space to let them say the words, I'm going to quit, I'm out, and walk away. But then I can let them come down from that, and then I can be like, hey, you got stuff that's going really well. You've got plenty of time. We can work through this. Let's troubleshoot. What's wrong? Unfortunately, in a backyard, you don't have that time. Like, you've got minutes to convince somebody and to get them stepped up. And I think many times when we do get them out of the chair and get them moving again, they go 100 yards and turn around and come back. So, which at least take out of the chair, because I think we often say don't quit in the chair and get on the course, at least quit there. But like sometimes when your brain has just said, hey, I've gotten to where I need to go, or I just can't do this anymore, you don't have a lot of runway to convince people in a backyard, because the race goes on no matter what.
Right. What is one moment or a couple moments from Elm Creek that kind of perfectly captures what this race is about? It could be at camp. It could be out on the course with a runner helping another runner. Like, is there a defining moment that's like, this is what we've wanted out of this race?
I think the year that Jody and Erica both got over 100 miles, like they together, it was year 3 that I don't think previous to that time we had a woman that crossed 100 miles, and they came in. I don't know if you know Jody and Erica, but
I know Jody.
They're both really accomplished ultra runners, and I was really excited. They've come to volunteer previously. They're really involved in the community. They've done lots of events. They're amazing fixtures, even just within Maple Grove, within kind of that running community for the treks. And they had showed up. I knew they wanted to get there, and like seeing them, and I think for a while they were running with Barbara Powell as well, I believe was running that year with them. And then just this group of kind of women came together and ran and helped pull each other through. I think Kaka was running with them for a bit, but everybody wanted to see like these women go and cross 100 miles. And like we're pulling at, like Erica, as she could have won the race. She was continued to go. But it was such a cool thing to see them come together. And as like the field whittled down, like you see everybody coming, what do you need? How do we turn them around? Like, how do we get them back on the course? Like they're helping each other out, like as runners. Cause at one point in time, it's like, Jody wants to be done. And it's like, you're not done. We're going to continue going. Erica wants to be done. Cause like you inevitably each have bad laps. And it's like even Aaron and, it was Andrew Naurat who was there. They were also pulling them along. And they were all just kind of working together. It's like as the field gets smaller, the crews come together, the runners come together, and you kind of recognize these individual goals the same as your kind of own goals to get people to certain places. And like that particular year was just special, seeing that group get across 100 miles for the first time, and then even to continue going, because a lot of folks said, we're just going to be done. And they went back out for 25 and continued on. I think Erica did 26. And it was very cool to see. And we kept pushing them along the way. So that, I think, kind of embodied a lot of what Backyard's about, because you see these runners that came together during the event, and then other runners kind of kept pulling for them. Other crews kept pulling for them, and everybody is kind of pushing to get them there. So we had similar things with, I think, we had a few runners that came that year too, because we had like 10 folks that hit 100 miles. And as that group narrowed down, I think it was 10 of them, I want to say from like hour 18 all the way to 100. So it was like 6 straight hours. Like the light had come up, people had come back. We were just looking to see kind of this group go. And it was just great. It was really cool to see everybody kind of work together and kind of will this group to go, and will Erica and Jody to go and cross 100 miles for women within the race, and kind of show folks that, you can keep going. You can do great things in this event.
Yeah, it is really cool to see that kind of shift as you get later into the race, with like everyone has their own individual goal, but you also start to become a team of bringing those along with like, okay, you can do another one, and then that loop may turn around for them, and then they may just have a great few loops in a row. So it's always fun to see how that kind of shifts throughout the race.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you tell someone who is considering their first Backyard Ultra, or who is running Elm Creek for the first time this year?
If you're considering running a backyard, I mean, I would want to tell you, if you are or not, you should. Like, it's an amazing format that is super accessible to every runner, whether you're currently a road runner, whether you're not a runner at all. Like, coming out and running 4.2 miles in an hour is just a great way to kind of, one, be with the community, experience kind of trail running, and it's a super safe and accessible space to kind of go and check it out. but it's also for a runner that just wants to go and, I mean, it could be great for a runner that wants to go and get a certain set of mileage. Like you've got set of mileage, you've got friends to run with. It's a group run for as long as you want to have a group run. So like you could have a 4-mile group run, you could have a 40-mile group run, and you could run with different people every time. But the beauty of it is you're always starting with a group, and you're always going to be out with 100 to 150 to 200 people every single time. And it's an avenue if you want to do night running, like come on out, get yourself in the dark. Like you've got to get 40-ish miles to get to the dark, but it's a really good opportunity, like as a spring training race for a later race. And I think generally backyards, to me, like the most appealing thing is like even the idea, if you're going to set intermediate goals, it's a really accessible way, one, to run 100 miles, and then two, to push yourself, to try to challenge and kind of see. And that's why I originally wanted to do. Like for me, I've always wanted to do one of these events just to kind of like, in my mind, I have a sense that I can do one of these things for a very long time. I want to go see. I want to test myself. I kind of want to kind of experience it. And it's fun being on a clock, because many times you could be like, oh, I'm going to go do a journey run across some given trail, like go run the Grand Canyon. There's not necessarily a time box. So like you can do it. It's an amazing experience to go do that type of thing and kind of see and test yourself that way. But there's a little bit of a challenge of I need to do this every hour, and I need to reset, and I need to troubleshoot, and I need to keep focus, and I need to kind of work through things. I don't need to work super hard, but I do need to kind of keep my mind in it for a long period of time. Right. And I think it's a really unique challenge that really anybody can do. And it's really a challenge for yourself. And I think it's super cool in that way. I always love that throughout the race, it's always we get to say, you're all in first place, because really, like you come back to the line, you are still in it. There's only one person that's going to finish the whole thing. And I think event to event, sometimes you're really surprised at those folks that do end up going further and do end up kind of finding that in themselves to continue pushing beyond. And it's not always the fastest runner that does it. I mean, fast runners have a certain advantage, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of really, really talented fast runners they get to 10 hours and they just cook themselves because they've been running 33-minute laps for 10 straight hours. And they cramp up and they can't work it out. And it happens. I mean, it happens to runners doing 50-minute miles too. It's like, how do you troubleshoot that? And are you willing to go back out when that happens? And I think you learn a lot about yourself when you put yourself in this type of format. And it's something that I think for anybody trying to challenge themselves, you're going to learn something every time you do it. And you're going to come up with some new insights about yourself. And every course is going to be different. Every kind of experience is going to be a little bit unique, but there's always going to be opportunity. And it's super cool because you get to do it with a giant group. You're not out by yourself for 12 to 24 to 36 hours, just rolling through the woods, hoping you might see somebody one day.
Right. So you are also looking at running a backyard ultra in the near future, correct?
I'm signed up to run the Ode to Laz silver ticket race in July.
Awesome. So what are you taking from your experience of watching and experiencing Elm Creek for the past 4 or 5 years into your own race for your training and for race day?
I go around the village and spy on people's camp set up to figure out, it's like, do they use a cot or do they use a gravity chair? I'm like, what's the pro?
Yeah.
Should I have a chair and a cot? I've seen like the people they've got the little organizers on the wall where it's like the 12 little pockets. And like, I love that. I actually have it set up in my basement right now with my little array of kind of work through. Like, what do you have on your table? Do you use just a jet boil or are you using a 2-burner stove? And what are you making? But for me, it's fun because I get to go around and I get to talk to people about kind of different things. I get to meet a lot of different folks. A lot of coaches show up to the event to look at watching their runners. Like I've got a whole different array of coaches that kind of come and see their runners. And I get to talk to a little bit of them. I'm like, how are you coaching a backyard runner? Like, because I think that the jury is still out too on how do you train to do something like this. I've listened to a lot of like Phil Gore talking about like what he's done to run 5 days. And you listen to Harvey Lewis and you listen to some of these guys, and a lot of it's just like high frequency. It's not necessarily high mileage, but they're running short, like 4 to 5 miles twice a day, every day till the end of time. So I try to incorporate more frequent short runs. So try to hike a lot because you end up walking a ton in these events. And like you talk to folks, you think, I remember one year, Luke Thorson, he had it down to a science. I don't remember the exact number of minutes, but he said something like, I think he had to run 8 minutes total in the loop to finish every loop on 57 minutes. And he had everything laid out, and he did 100 miles. And he did it like clockwork. He walked the same spots every time. He ran the same spots every time. He ate like clockwork. Like the guy is just a technician when it came down to his plan. And I remember talking to him like, man, as I've thought about my own like event for Ode to Lads, like I look at the course, I'm thinking, it's like, okay, what's runnable, what's not runnable? Like, how do you kind of contemplate when you would run? How fast do you want to be running loops? Like, how much time do you need? Do you try to do a Phil Gore type strategy where you incorporate fast loops and slow loops? Or do you get by doing, I mean, Harvey runs pretty consistently through his loops throughout the race, and he ebbs and flows. Like, there's different approaches, and I think for me, I try to practice those different things as I'm getting ready for it. And then on the nutrition side, I just try to simplify things and make sure I've got the right balance of calories, because there's also like you listen to different folks on nutrition, you talk to different nutritionists, making sure you get the right balance of like macronutrients as you're going. Because I think as you go longer and longer, it's like, are you getting enough protein and fat? Because there's plenty of carbs out there that people are eating, but you at least need a little bit. And where are you going to get them from?
Right.
And where do you have options? So I don't know. I'm a bit of an over planner, but it's I don't know. I have lots of spreadsheets, so that's somewhat the nature of how I set up the race too. If I try to plan for every contingency and make sure we're ready to go. And when I do events in the infrequent, I don't do them very often anymore since I've had kids, but I tend to make a lot of plans and try to work through different things and troubleshoot different scenarios and leave no stone unturned.
No, I love that approach. There's so many different approaches that you can take to pacing, to nutrition, to sleep, to your camp. And I mean, I feel like it's just also trial and error of figuring out what works and what doesn't. And then, I mean, you're going to have to run another backyard after July so that you can implement some of the things that you want to do better.
I've been running my own mini ones at my house. So it's like practicing that way and doing little like hour chunks to try to do what I can in the time, because I'm going to take advantage of July as much as possible, but I'm sure I'll find my way to another one after that.
Yeah.
Eric and I and Jeanette and Bryn keep joking that one of us is going to run Elm Creek one year, but we'll see. We haven't done it yet, but maybe one of us will show up and be running it. So
that brings me back to kind of the beginning of our conversation when you were looking around for backyards in the area and there weren't any. Were you looking for one to run in the beginning, and then you decided to put it on yourself?
I really wanted to run ones. My own like sport journey is long and complicated for different reasons, but at the time I was getting back into trail running after a little bit of a lapse, but I was nowhere near as fast as I used to be. So I figured long events is kind of where my brain went. It's like, oh, backyard, that seems run slow. Like I've done a lot of things that go over many days. I'm like, this seems kind of like the right fit for me. I ended up jumping into one of the 200s that are out there because I couldn't find a backyard as I organized a backyard. But I really wanted to do one. And my kids are very busy and finding time to do them. And even the other one nearby in Wausau, for the first 3 years, it was the same weekend. So, and now, they do an amazing job. Like I've met Ellen and some of the other race directors, and in the early years, we actually kind of co-did some athlete panels, but we've kind of both do some of that stuff today. And they do an awesome job, and I'd love to go see their event one day. They've now shifted a week, so in theory I could do it, but I also know after the event I'm pretty wiped out because the runners don't sleep. I don't sleep for about 3 days, so I go lay down. My cot is generally the back of a trailer, which is always fun. Like not like a nice trailer that people live in, but literally the trailer. We have an 18-foot trailer that we haul the stuff. I go put down a sleeping pad and a pillow, and I go sleep in there. So if you're ever looking for me, that's probably where you'll find me.
Look for the trailer to find Nick.
So I'm just laying down there on a piece of plywood with a pillow.
So I have a few rapid fire questions as we kind of wrap up this episode. So my first question is, What is the biggest pacing mistake that you see in backyard ultras?
Um, it's probably going too fast. I think it's often people that go too fast more than people that go too slow. I know the longer, like just researching events, I think you end up having it inverse if you're really going super long because you end up seeing, like in the backyard championships, Phil Gore was he was on the course for something like 30 hours less than the next closest guy based on how fast he was running, which I think it matters when you get to 4+ days. In an event that's going 1 to 2 days, I think oftentimes you're not going to push yourself as far if you go too fast too early. So I think generally it's those folks that are just ripping laps early that they can do it for a long time, but they won't go necessarily as far as they could if they were to temper their pace a little bit. So I think generally for those really, really strong runners, they have to, I think you still run, but it's not like, how do you purposefully plan walk breaks? So still run your normal pace. Because I think a lot of times you hear folks like that are really great runners. It's like, well, I don't run slower than 7 minutes a mile. They're a 2:30 marathoner, and they're like, my recovery pace is 7 minutes a mile. That's fine. It's like, well, run your 7 minutes a mile, but run a mile, walk half a mile. Like take some time just to kind of let your like body come down a little bit and just pace yourself.
The most overrated piece of gear.
Most overrated piece of gear. That one. I'm drawing a blank at the moment.
It's hard, right? Because the backyard, you can
bring it. Well, you're not allowed to bring trekking
a lot.
poles. So, and I think sometimes like trekking poles can be like there's like the pro and con trekking pole camp. I use them when I do really long events because I think they're helpful. But I think you got to practice with them. Man, overrated piece. I don't have a lot of gear myself, so I keep it pretty simple. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. What is it for you? Fine. Like give me an idea.
I feel like people put too much weight into bringing a ton of clothes and a ton of shoes, and then they don't actually end up using it. So I think overpacking to an extent,
giving yourself too many choices, is fair. I'm reflecting on that up in my little backyard set up in the basement.
Yeah. Well, I think that like there's pros and cons to it, right? I think the biggest thing is you just need to know where your stuff is, and your crew needs to know where it is too. So you just need to have that organization to it, and then it's not going to be a disadvantage as long as you know where stuff is.
I think it's knowing where it is and having used your stuff. Like that's the one thing too that I see people bring gear that they had just bought, and that especially like rain jackets. Like if you're not familiar with like how your rain jacket breathes, because you can heat yourself up really quickly depending on the jacket that you have. And they're sweating like crazy and it's raining and they've got their jacket peeled down because they don't quite know that, like given the jacket that you have, it's not necessarily going to behave the way it like a running jacket might that has all these giant vents on it. But
what is like a red flag that you noticed early on of they need to change something up now, either nutrition or pacing or whatever, so that they can actually go further? Like what's a red flag that you noticed early on?
I'll give you kind of a crew perspective and then the race director perspective. So the crew one is oftentimes it's the eating nutrition piece. It's like you need to be sure you're getting some calories, and I think sometimes crews are afraid to tell their runner that they're making a bad choice. When the runner's like, I don't feel good, so I'm just not going to eat for a while. Like, well, you need to figure out something because you're operating in a deficit, and like try different things. Don't overeat, but make sure you are getting nutrition. From a race director standpoint, the big red flag that we've actually had to more explicitly address is people taking drugs like ibuprofen, which can be a really bad no-no. And especially for new runners, they come in and I think forever you talk about people like taking, I can't remember, it was like the old adage from the old running community about eye pills or something, but ibuprofen is a crutch for a lot of people, but in endurance sport especially, like it can be really, really dangerous. Like we explicitly tell folks like you can't take NSAIDs because of the risk to your liver, especially in this type of format. Tylenol's okay, but like we are really observant about folks and what, like if they're taking like supplements of some kind, and we try to talk to their crew about what they're taking, and we explicitly tell folks do not bring ibuprofen or any NSAID because we're just not going to allow it because of how dangerous it can be for folks doing especially these long type of events. So, but I think many times people are taking like salt pills and they're not really aware of how much is in the salt pill. And they're also sucking down a bunch of potato chips and broth. I'm like, you just took down like 3,000 milligrams of sodium. Like, cause ramen is the classic. It's like, I just want ramen noodles. I'm like, do you know how much sodium's in that? Like, it's great. It tastes really good, but man, you are like, more often people always think a lot of times they're like, oh, I'm cramped because I don't have enough salt. And like, no, it's usually, you probably have too much because of just, they'll take electrolyte pills and then they'll have an electrolyte drink and then they'll go to the aid station and be like, I'm going to have these potato chips and I'm going to have some noodles that are salty. And because salt is also awesome when you're in these events too. You're like, I just, nothing more than something salty. And, but that can be, the taking supplements or other pills and not thinking about them in the context of your nutrition plan as well can be a little bit hazardous for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. The last question that I have for you is, if someone is listening to this episode at hour 12 of their Backyard Ultra, what do you want them to remember?
Just don't quit. Just keep going. So I think in a backyard especially, you're going to feel good. You're going to feel bad. You're going to have ups and downs. Just know like every down has an up. Like you will cycle through. And for me, like one of the reasons I love these types of events and I love these types of challenges is you kind of get to experience a lifetime in a day. You kind of go through these roller coasters up and down. You don't always remember everything you're thinking about, but I think you just have to take the good with the bad and just know the good will come back. Like it's going to get better. Yeah. It will inevitably turn around no matter what you're feeling. I mean, there's always, it's again, your mind is what's really kind of keeping you going or taking you out of an event more often than not. There's certainly medical things that come up that it's good to have a crew or get a second opinion to be like, is this truly something that is a medical thing? Or is it just my head being like, I want to be done? But as you're running, as you're getting in there, just know you can keep going. Like if you're able to take a step, you can take another one. So if your legs are working, just keep going. Just don't quit.
Yeah. It's a hard lesson to learn, right? But it gets easier. I would say it kind of gets easier the more that you do it, even though it's still hard in the moment. Yeah. But I think that's one of the most valuable lessons that you can learn in an ultra is actually getting through that first low point and recognizing that you can do it.
One thing like I've done in events that I've done, and like my wife's a huge help, I just ask her, like, write me a few short notes, like just remind me about why I'm out here. Because you can always, like, you can go in with like your why, but you talk about it with your crew, you talk about it with your family, like, why are you doing this? It's like getting it from their perspective can be really powerful. Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm having a low point. I open up a little note that my wife wrote me about why I'm out here. It kind of really regrounds you. Because I think when you kind of, you go in, you write down your why am I here? And you kind of, it's a powerful thing to hold on to. But when you hear it from somebody else in their words or from their perspective, to me, that's like just like a snap too that can really kind of bring you back. It can also make you really emotional and be like what? You know, a meltdown. It's like, it's okay. Like they're supporting you too. But for me, I don't know. I lean on her a lot to be like, hey, help remind me. Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of times, any of these journeys are not just about you individually. You get to go out. You're doing it yourself, but you're doing it with a whole group of people behind you that are supporting you, and like having their voice like in your pocket, even if they're not there to crew you, is a great thing to have to help you navigate some of those lows.
Yeah, I love that idea. All right. So thank you, Nick, so much for this conversation. I think that just kind of pulling back the curtain on what really goes into a race like Elm Creek and going through some of the specifics was just absolutely eye-opening and will be for the listeners as well. For those who want to follow you, who want to follow the race, How do they follow you? What's the best way to kind of follow along?
The best way to follow the race is probably our Facebook page, which my friend Jeanette takes care of managing. But Jeanette and I, we go respond. Jeanette's super responsive on there. I'm somewhat responsive on there. But the Elm Creek Facebook page, and there's an Instagram account. I have social media, but I'm not on it very much at all, outside of my wife sending me random reels. So, but I don't post much there. I aspire to maybe post when I actually go and race again. So, but if you want, you can try to track me down at Buck Oswald. There's nothing there right now. Why Buck Oswald is a question for my wife, but it's a nickname she came up for me, so it became my Instagram handle.
I feel like there's so many different stories that go into everyone's Instagram handles. There's a lot of unique ones.
Yeah, definitely.
I will make sure to get the link in the show notes. And just a reminder for anyone who's looking to run Elm Creek in the future, make sure that you sign up like as soon as registration is available, because
Labor Day. It'll open Labor Day every year.
Okay.
This year it sold out in 24 days. So
crazy, which is also awesome at the same time, but don't expect to sign up on New Year's when other races are opening, because you'll be on the wait list.
We've gotten a lot of folks that have emailed, and like we do the best we can. We're going to keep it at about that 185 to 200 number. And we love to have you all there. So it's a really cool experience. If you can't come and you want to come and just see the course and sweep for us, we've got a volunteer form on our Facebook page, and we'll get in touch with you about some times to come. We can always use help overnight because it's the sparser time for volunteers.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. If you are listening to this and you've ever wondered, like, do you belong in the Backyard Ultra world? Let this be your reminder that you don't need to have it all figured out. Like, go out and try one loop. Just see what it's like. See what the community is like. I think it's absolutely incredible. You don't need to be running a certain pace or mileage. You don't have to identify as this ultra runner. Like, just go out and have fun and try it out. So until next time, just go one more hour or even one more step. Thanks for tuning in to One More Hour. If you enjoyed this episode, hit follow so you don't miss the next yard. And share it with a runner who loves pushing their limits. I'd love to hear your own stories of going one more. Connect with me on Instagram at the One More Hour Podcast. And if you could leave a quick review, it'll help more runners find the show and keep going when they want to stop. Until next time, just go one more hour.